Welcome to the Sports Room, the sports show that actually does talk about sports. I'm your co-host, Derek Crystal, and with me as always is Darius Matthews. And we do have our other co-host here, Riley Evans. But before we introduce Riley, let's give a little backstory on the situation. Darius?
All right. So about a week ago, was it that we said Mr. Church had to wear a dress because he made the wrong picks in the conference championships. I believe he went 1-4. Am I right, Derek?
That is correct. So just to back up a little bit, we had this conversation about what the loser should do if the loser of picking the conference champions, what they would have to do as like a dare or a challenge. And Bubba brought up the idea of wearing a dress, and Darius and I both humbly disagreed and decided that that wasn't something that we wanted to do, even though we knew our picks would probably not be wrong. However, Bubba was persistent, pushed on the dress, and as karma would allow it, Bubba is here wearing a dress right now, and we will post this picture for you on social media, on Twitter. We actually haven't seen him. He's covered up in a blanket right now, but he's wearing a dress because he picked 1 out of 5 conference games wrong. The only one he got right was, which game was it? The Clemson game. Well, so he picked the 1 seed, got that one right, and got the other 4 wrong. So Bubba's here wearing a dress. We have not seen him in this dress, and he's about to reveal it to us, and then we will post it for you all to see. But Bubba.
Oh no! We suck again!
Oh, man. Da, 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 da.
That is disgusting.
Man, that is a sight for
Let me paint you a
very
visual.
sore eyes.
A red prom dress with a few chest hairs protruding from the lower neck, upper chest area.
Santa's weird little helper.
Yeah, he looks like an elf.
You know, so every once in a while in life, you just gotta take what you deserve. And this is exactly what I'm doing right now. I deserve this. I 100% deserve this by going 1-4. I went 1-4. Couldn't believe that. It was actually kind of funny yesterday when I bought this at Savers for $4. And I was kind of just looking around at ones that I liked. Okay. As funny as that sounds. And hold on, I don't know if this is working. And I took it up to the counter, and the lady, I put it on the counter to pay for. She scans it, and I'm kind of just waiting there, and she kind of looks at me, kind of funny. This is a true story, and she says, "Is this for you?" Okay, so now put yourself in that position. She asks, "Is it for you?" Obviously, it is for me. But do I say, yes, this is for me?
Oh.
Or do I lie to strangers, which is a silly thing to do, and say, no, that's not for me, it's for, my sister or my girlfriend or whatever.
You're going to buy a dress for your sister?
And with no shame, I told her that it was indeed for me.
Uh-oh.
She said, "Is this for you?" I said, "Yeah, it's for me." She said, "Why?" I said, my dad lost a bet. I have to wear this on my YouTube/podcast show tomorrow.
So my question is, do I have to sit here and look
Yes, you do.
Like your position right now is like you got an arm on your hip and I can see your armpit hair through a red dress.
Very
Look,
scary.
I'm sure this is just as painful for you as it is for me.
It's probably worse for me.
Because, let's be honest. Probably of the video of this, I don't know, 20 people might see this.
Man.
Oh, my straps keep falling down. Now I know what it feels like to be a girl. And I'm going to be honest, it's a little it's drafty down there. Like, it is airy. I don't know.
Part of me thinks
this is a really different, unique experience.
This was your idea.
Yeah.
You got 1-4, 1 out of 5. Was this something that you had planned? Like, this
is what I had planned.
Finally got the opportunity to be yourself.
Dude, you're absolutely right. This is exactly what I wanted to happen. To have me sitting here in some tiny little red dress in front of everybody that I had know and care about.
Hey. Ain't nobody judging.
I'm judging. And you also, I mean, you were saying you're walking through the store, picking out the ones you liked. I mean, I don't know. Could be wrong, but anyway, either way, Bubba's wearing a dress.
Okay, well, when I say ones that I liked, it was more like one that I thought would fit and would satisfy your guys' demands.
So what size are you?
I have no idea. I don't know what size this is. I looked at it, I was like, yeah, that'll probably fit. And I threw it on. I threw it on the counter. I didn't even actually wear it. I'm not going to lie. I tried it on. I had to try it on because I didn't know if I could actually fit into it.
Had to make sure it fit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
I wasn't going to back out of this at the last second.
It's kind of like that episode of Alvin and the Chipmunks where I believe it's Alvin having a nightmare where one of his friends is normal and then slowly starts turning into a werewolf. Except in this instance, you're wearing a dress and you're turning into a werewolf. So it's kind of like a cartoon scenario. So I'm not hating. I mean, it's cliche, but it's pretty cool. Kind of scary, but it's cool.
Yeah, definitely not one of the high points in my life. I don't think. Anyways.
Well, the good news is, as you can see, if we lose a bet, we are men of our word.
Yeah.
Or women of our word,
that's what anybody should take away from this is that we will do what we vow to do.
You play to win the game.
And I'm winning. I'm just kidding. All right, so what we thought we'd do first then, the fact that I'm sitting here wearing this dress, is we'd hold Bubba accountable. Hold me accountable for all the bad picks that I made in the conference championship games last weekend.
Yes.
So like Derek said in the open, I got 1 out of 4 right. I correctly predicted Clemson would win. I felt like that was a game I think everybody picked Clemson except for Ty. But all the other games I was incorrect about. So we'll start with the one that I felt the most confident that I would be right about. The one that I felt for sure that I would be right about was Auburn beating Georgia. And if you remember on that show, my reason for it was I told you I don't know what else is going to change. I don't know what can all be different in this game than what happened earlier this season when Auburn blew them out. And it turns out that a lot can actually be different. One of the biggest problems that I had was I didn't think Jake Fromm could kind of rear back and throw the ball down the field. And he not only did that, but he did that at an elite level. I thought he played excellent. And I did not see that coming. I was so high on Auburn's defense, especially their front seven. I just thought the pass rush would give him all kinds of fits, and there's just no way that they would be able to do that. But give credit, I would think specifically to Georgia's offensive line, pulling together the pass rush. And he's a true freshman and played like a senior. And, beat the number 2 team in the nation.
Does it tell you anything about the SEC? Whether on any given week any given team can win?
Yeah, I would say more than anything, it's a testament to the parity in there. That you can blow out one team and then in return get blown out by them 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later.
And everyone was saying, what does this do for Auburn's resume? It doesn't do anything. Or what does this do to Alabama's resume, having, their only loss of the season now has 3 losses. It didn't do anything. Clearly, obviously, it didn't do anything to it, but I thought that was a ridiculous argument whenever it was being made.
Right.
So that was the first one that I got wrong. I thought Auburn would beat Georgia again. Kirby Smart proved me wrong. So
second game was a game where we told Bubba not to do it. If you clearly listen, Darius and I are both saying don't do it.
Please don't do it.
He chose TCU to beat Oklahoma and the Heisman hopeful Baker Mayfield.
I think we could probably just say Heisman winner.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield at this point. But yes, that was the one that you guys all warned me against it. You did. I told you that day that I didn't trust Oklahoma's defense. And I would say that I really still don't, but it didn't matter. They were opportunistic and got turnovers when they needed. Baker Mayfield was one thing that I didn't. It sounds kind of silly to say, but I didn't weigh him as much into that equation as I obviously should have. I figured that TCU's defense would be a little healthier than they were when they played in Norman. It was a neutral site game, even though that was filled with red. And I just thought the game would be different. But from the first snap, first series, Oklahoma went down and scored, or maybe kicked the field goal. And then the very first offensive play for TCU was a fumble, and Oklahoma scooped and scored. And so from that moment on, I was like, yeah, this is bad. This is not going to go well for me, probably. But, I stand by what I said about Oklahoma's defense. I think they're going to play better, too, if they, they're obviously playing, who are they playing? Georgia. they're going to play better offenses than they played than TCU. I don't think TCU's was as elite as I thought they were. They were missing their starting running back as well. And so I was just wrong. I just did not take into account how much of an impact Baker Mayfield will have. And looking back on that, it's a huge mistake to have made.
Game 3. Tell us why you chose Wisconsin over Ohio State.
Okay, I chose Wisconsin because I looked back on Wisconsin's most previous games, specifically the one against Michigan, and kind of came to the conclusion that Wisconsin was going to be able to run the ball on anybody. Anybody they played. Maybe not initially in a game, but over the course of the game, they would wear whoever they were playing down and be able to run the ball. And I, probably more than I should have, fell in love with their defense, with their front seven. I did not realize until I watched that game just how slow they were.
Very.
They could not cover the athletes that Ohio State had in space. They just could not do it. Ohio State, the score of that game, I don't think really indicated how dominant Ohio State was in that game. Wisconsin was not able to run the ball as effectively as I thought I would. Ohio State loaded the box and made Alex Hornibrook beat him, and he couldn't do it. He looked average at best in that game. I took a risk with Wisconsin. I knew that going in. I figured that they were tough. They were a tough team, and they won with defense, and that's a winning formula, I thought. But just how slow and just big they were on defense, just USC would be able to slow them down enough. Stanford ended up starting KJ Costello at quarterback in that game, and I don't think he played particularly well. And I thought Stanford's defense would play much better. Sam Darnold hadn't played particularly well the last couple weeks, and just thought that would be a different game than it was.
Well, Stanford, Wisconsin, Auburn, TCU. Because of you, Bubba is sitting across from me wearing a red prom dress.
And I can't zip it up in the back. Like, I don't know what I would probably say that the age of the person who wore this was probably between 15 and 18, and I'm 25.
You don't have to say the person, the girl.
Okay, the girl who wore this is probably a high, like you said, it's probably a prom dress, and I cannot zip it up in the back.
He's spinning in his chair. I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know. I'm too jacked, I guess.
Yeah, too
Spending
red.
way too much time
That's
at the gym, and the straps keep falling down. Gosh, this is hard. Respect to all the women out there. I'm serious. This sucks.
Respect.
Okay. So this is the Sports Room Show, the sports show that actually talks about sports. Thank you so much for listening, watching, downloading, however you're listening or consuming us today. Let's talk about Thursday Night Football last night. It was a good game, divisional matchup. It was huge. Saints leading that division, Falcons fighting for a wild card spot. It was a crazy game. A lot of turnovers, interceptions. Matt Ryan threw 3 interceptions, 2 of which were awful.
Horrible.
Just right to the guys. But Atlanta ended up winning that game late. Drew Brees throwing an interception in the last, I believe, couple minutes in the end zone to seal that game. They were about to get the ball back, and Sean Payton ran like halfway out onto the field, got an unsportsmanlike automatic first down, and that was it. So big win for Atlanta, getting back on track, staying in pace with Seattle. Your guys' initial thoughts?
A lot of unforced errors in that game on both sides. Like you said, Sean Payton and Atlanta. 2 of those interceptions, Matt Ryan did not have to throw. That was just a bad decision by him. But I thought overall it was a really good game. I liked what I saw defensively from Atlanta, and that's one thing about Atlanta that does make them scary, fighting for that wild card spot if they do end up getting in, is that defense, especially in the front. You guys talk about it every week. Dontari Poe is incredible up front. Grady Jarrett is incredible, and then you got Claiborne on the other side of that. They look scary to me. They look tough, but so does New Orleans. So I was impressed with the game. I didn't like all the turnovers. I didn't like all the penalties, but it was a good game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about the Falcons' defense when they've been known for last season and this season for their offense. And that's what got them to the Super Bowl. Right. And as well, their defense has gotten stronger. I think they're one of the teams to worry about headed into the playoffs if you're one of the teams fighting.
Yep.
And that division's just crazy right now. But I think that was a big game. If I'm not mistaken, these two teams meet up in 2 weeks, this time in New Orleans. So I think that one could be a make or break, win or go home for the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the MVP of the game last night was Deion Jones.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a middle or outside linebacker with the Falcons, but he is a special player.
Oh, yeah.
With how athletic and fast he is at the linebacker position. I thought one of the biggest reasons why Atlanta was so successful defensively last night was that he was able to defend the running backs out of the backfield, which nobody else has been able to do, especially Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
I mean, he really was. He's the only linebacker probably they faced that could run with those guys step for step.
Covers the field like a safety.
Yeah, he really does. And I thought that was crucial, and he was the one that came up with the interception at the end as well. Last week when we did our NFL draft, drafting teams that we thought would win the Super Bowl, I drafted the Saints second overall and stand by that. I think that I don't walk away from that game feeling any less confident about the Saints as I did before. They dealt with a few injuries. Kamara didn't play most of the game. Went in for concussion
Which, by
protocol.
the way, this is what's wrong with fantasy football is I'm in the playoffs in one of my leagues and I have Mark Ingram on my team. And my first thought when he goes out is more touches for Ingram, which is a terrible thought. But that's what OBJ was saying earlier in the season is these people don't care about our lives. They care about their stats.
Their stats.
Just a side note, I mean, fantasy, I immediately, felt bad and forsook my thoughts. But
yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't feel any less confident about the Saints. I thought the defense played good, forced 3 interceptions. I thought Matt Ryan people have been writing in the media, people in sports radio have been saying it all along that he needs to throw the ball to Julio Jones. And 2 of those interceptions were because he forced bad throws to Julio Jones when he was obviously covered. The one right before halftime and the one in the end zone, I think, just barely out of halftime.
Mm-hmm.
But so I thought that was a big problem. But again, my confidence in the Saints and their ability to win in the postseason is not diminished whatsoever.
My reason to not doubt the Saints headed into the playoffs, because you look at the Saints are what's their record? They're
9-4.
9-4. So they're 9-4. The Falcons are 8-5. The Panthers are 8-4. So those 3 teams are fighting for that division spot. And the reason why I think that the Saints might have an edge there is that they have the Jets, then they play the Falcons at home, and then they have the Bucs. So schedule-wise, as far as getting into the postseason, the Saints are a little favored, I think, in that, as opposed to their division rivals. But as far as getting into the postseason, once they're in, they can make as a good a run as any, I think.
Let it be noted, nobody in this room drafted the Falcons last week on Monday. The Jags were drafted, the Rams were drafted, the Vikings, the Cowboys were drafted.
So the Vikings,
Cowboys probably not going to make the playoffs.
The Vikings are 10-2.
Yeah.
Cowboys are 6-6. That was a pick I made because I picked the Patriots. I had a gimme. But the Falcons, if the Falcons get in, I would put more money on them than the Vikings, honestly, with Case Keenum. So I mean, the fact that nobody chose the Falcons, I mean, hindsight's 20/20. They lost that game. They might not be going to the playoffs at all. So
yeah. And so what it really sets up, though, is this grandstand finish these last 3 weeks in the NFC. It seems like there's 8 or 9 teams that are vying for 2 wild card spots, and it seems like any of them can get them. It really feels like it's going to take 11 wins in the NFC to make the playoffs.
Yep.
It's kind of what it feels like right now.
No 9-7 teams getting in.
Yeah, 9-7, and maybe the 6th seed will be 10-6. But I really think that the 5th seed, that first wild card team, is going to be 11-5.
Yeah.
And so which teams?
So we have the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons, the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Rams, which are all fighting for those 4 spots on wild card weekend. So not the Vikings, not the Eagles. I mean, the Rams, out of those teams, Rams, Cowboys, Seahawks, Falcons, Panthers, Saints. Starting with, you could say the team that you think gets in, team that gets out. Which team do you think is either a shoo-in as of right now, or they are the first one eliminated out of these teams?
So what is Seattle's remaining schedule?
The Seahawks play in Jacksonville.
Ooh.
Then they are home for their final 3 games against the Rams, the Cowboys, and the Cardinals.
Ooh-wee.
So
But
3
the
tough
Seahawks
games
are
after
hot.
the Seahawks. The Seahawks are hot.
Man's not hot.
I want to doubt the Seahawks. And I know in my heart that I probably shouldn't, because they're a team that plays with a lot of confidence and grit, especially at this time of the year. But I want to doubt them because it seems like what they're doing, especially offensively, is not sustainable. That you can't just throw the ball back to Russell Wilson and say, hey, run around and make something happen. I mean, he's been doing this for years, and he's been doing it good for years, but part of me just wants to say with a tough schedule, albeit at home, but with a tough schedule remaining, of that group that you just listed, I would want to say that they're probably the ones that I would have the least confidence in them making the playoffs.
Of all those teams that I mentioned, the team that I think will not make the playoffs is going to be the Cowboys. Ironically, the team I chose as one of my 4 teams to potentially win the Super Bowl. And let me tell you why. The Cowboys, they're probably guaranteed to win here. I mean, they're not guaranteed. It's a rival, but they play the Giants this week. After the
Eli
Giants,
Manning back in the starting lineup.
Yep.
after the Giants, they play on the road to the Raiders, who are fighting for their lives. Then they play the Seahawks, and then they play the Eagles. So a 6-6 Cowboys with 3 potential playoff teams in their final 4 games. I'd probably say the Cowboys would be one of the first to go.
Same. I would, yeah. I think the Cowboys are as good as out.
Yeah, they're done.
Even
They have to run the table. And
you got to run
Cowboys
it.
are done.
Even the Panthers. I mean, look at the Panthers' schedule right now. When Aaron Rodgers will be back, what, a week or 2,
a couple weeks, yeah.
depending on how healthy he is.
If he does.
But the Panthers have
I
the
think it's stupid
Vikings,
that he's going to.
the Vikings, the Packers, the Bucks, the Falcons.
Ooh.
So a lot of these teams are playing each other. I think the team that has the best chance, like I mentioned earlier, probably the Saints. They got the Jets and the Bucks, and then they got one more game against the Falcons, and that's going to be, that could be another close game, and they could win that one. I do think that the hottest team of all those teams is the Seahawks. But they do have a tough schedule.
Biggin?
Carolina's problem is that everybody's getting hurt for them right now. So Shaq Thompson just went down. Matt Khalil is out. And Greg Olsen, they're still questionable about him. So if you don't have all of your big hitters coming into these last few games, I think your chances of winning are less likely. I mean, you have Cam Newton, you have that defensive line, you have Luke Kuechly, and you have Thomas Davis, but you're still missing a few key parts of that team. But again, I think the Seahawks they're almost guaranteed to make it from my standpoint. I say that they win out. It's going to be tough, but I think they win out the rest of the season. And I say that because I look back over history and I look at Russell Wilson's resume, and you look at teams who play in the Super Bowl who either win or lose, they usually come back and they're not very good the next year. The Seahawks are one of those teams who have been to the Super Bowl, 2 times, and they've been not better, but they've been good every year. The Broncos had a fall off, the Panthers had a fall off, and I mean the Patriots never have a fall off. But
So let it be said, Darius is calling a win out for the Seahawks.
I'm calling a win out.
So they got the Jags this week, which
So that would make them 12-4. Is that right?
12-4.
Yes.
They got the Jags this week, which I'm pulling for the Seahawks there. Then they got the Rams, who are 9-3, the Cowboys, and the
6-6.
Cardinals.
Cardinals are out of it.
Yeah,
They'll have
but
nothing
that's
to do.
tough.
Cardinals are done.
Cardinals are always a tough team.
They'll be tough. And we know the Rams always play the Seahawks tough. So that'll be a tough game.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't misunderstand what I said before. Like I said, I know in my heart that I shouldn't doubt the Seahawks because I think they're that capable of just playing well. Defense is banged up, but I think they play together. They play with confidence and swagger that nobody else in the league plays with.
Right.
I just think that what they do on offense, I mean, I find it hard to believe that in today's NFL you can win a Super Bowl with an offensive line as bad as theirs is. Because it is literally, this is not an exaggeration, it is a snap the ball and Russ, you run around and make something happen.
Yeah, it's true.
I would be surprised if they even have plays.
It's flag football.
It's basically what it is.
He would be
Snap
a great
the ball,
flag football
in less than a second, you got somebody in your face. You have to scramble, and you got to keep your eyes downfield, look for something to make something happen. I just don't know if that's sustainable, especially if they get into the playoffs to make it all the way to the Super Bowl.
And I think the
But
Falcons,
like I said, they've been doing it, and so
And
Right.
Dwayne Brown's their only good old lineman. That's really it.
I do think that the Falcons are the team that probably has like the most control over their own future. They have the Bucks, the Saints, Panthers, 3 division games. You win those 3, you're guaranteeing you're probably taking your division and walking away into the playoffs.